I want to finish this point. You said known by the company you keep, right? So I have a really hard time when Republicans make this argument because I happen to been following Donald Trump for the last 20 years. And so the company he keeps is dictators from around the country. It is from around the world. It is Jeffrey Epstein. It is crooks and criminals. There's Nick Fuentes having lunch with him. So you guys have the gall to talk to anybody about guilt by association?
Donald Trump, let's talk.
Democratic candidate Abdul El-Sayed is getting hammered by Republicans over his association with Hassan Piker. But in this clip, Charles Blow completely flips the argument back on them. As the panel debates guilt by association, Charles points directly at Donald Trump's own relationships with controversial figures and asks a very simple question. How can Republicans use that argument against Democrats while ignoring the company Donald Trump himself keeps? Now, if you're new here, I'm Bradley Hostin, and this is The Bradley Hostin Show. If you enjoy honest political commentary, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
He's become one of the right's new favorite punching bags, and tonight, Abdul El-Sayed joins the right's favorite network. The Democratic nominee for Senate in Michigan has been attacked for his name, his faith, his politics, and some Republicans have called him un-American, a terrorist, and a communist. And during an interview with host Jesse Waters, El-Sayed was asked about red meat for the MAGA audience, racism, reparations, the NFL, Colin Kaepernick, ICE, sex changes, the Green New Deal, whether Beyonce should pay more taxes, and whether El-Sayed was glad Iran's Ayatollah was dead. El-Sayed called him out.
Jesse, you have not asked me one time about the issues that people actually care about in Michigan. You don't want to talk about gas prices. You don't want to talk about groceries. You don't want to talk about health care. You don't want to talk about the stupid trade war that's about to destroy Michigan's economy.
We spent the whole interview talking about that stuff.
That's destroying, that is destroying our own military. You don't seem to want to talk about any of those things. You want to bring up all this culture war that, you know, I'm not here to fight a culture war.
We talked about the war. We talked about gas prices and the Green New Deal, okay? If you want to do an interview,
I brought them up every time.
You can do the interview.
I'm
getting
at
whether you think
Michigan,
men should play
as
in
the next
women's
U.S. Senator in
sports.
Michigan,
It's a big issue.
I'm interested in getting money out of politics, putting money in your pocket, and passing Medicare for all.
You're
You know what most people
filibustering,
don't care
Abdul.
about?
So on the one hand, I mean, this was sort of like the greatest hits of what you would expect to hear on Fox. However, and it might work for the people for whom those are issues that they're sensitive about. However, I do think that it kind of, El-Sayed's point is that it sort of obscures the other issues that are at the top of the list for actual voters in this race.
No, but I think it shows strength and courage to go do it. Like when I first started doing television, the place that had me on most was Fox in the Morning. It is not easy to be a liberal in that mix. And just going in there, standing on your own 2 feet, holding your own, is good. It's strong. And I think that what they were trying to accomplish on his campaign is to come out of that with clips of him being asked a question that is not about one of the priorities of Michigan, and him going back and saying, but you haven't asked me about what Michigan voters care about. I think that he got exactly what he wanted out of that interview, even though I think Fox got what they wanted. They wanted to throw all the culture war stuff at him and have him deflect from it and not answer it so they can play it a million times. But he's also going to play it a million times on his social media. And I think social media in his campaign is proving to be really potent.
Yeah, it's right. And when we think about the clips, right, it can go both ways. It was a long interview. We watched it, so you at home don't have to. Because in large part, it was a bit of a waste, right? It was a man, Jesse Waters, in makeup on TV talking about transgender athletes and billionaires' rights when people at home in states like Arizona, where I'm from, another swing state, right? Half of people that were on SNAP fell off in the last year because of Trump's big, beautiful bill. Like, they are worried about actually making rent this month. They are in crisis. They're worried about putting food on the table. And I think what El-Sayed did really well was go in there and say, that's what I want to talk about. That's what Democrats want to talk about, whether they're far left, centrist, right? He came in and said, this is what our agenda is. It is about making your life better, while the Fox Newses of the world are litigating cases and issues that don't really matter.
One of the interesting things, again, this is actually characteristic of how El-Sayed is being handled by the right. They have a lot of issues with his policies, his economic policies, but they keep attacking him on culture war issues. Here's Tim Scott just tonight talking about El-Sayed.
These radicals don't just want new policies. They want to change the very DNA of what it means to be an American. They're coming after our culture, Sean, and that is what makes them dangerous. Their policies are radical, their cultural shift. It is dangerous for Americans, and we must stand in the gap and make sure they never see the floor of the Senate. This is the most important midterm election in our lifetime. It is no longer Democrats versus Republicans. It's communists and socialists against what makes America great, our Judeo-Christian values and a free market system.
Would they be better off just simply attacking him, if you're going to attack him, on the policies, on the economic incompatibility of what he's putting on the table with what people in Michigan want, rather than saying, oh, he's going to change our culture? What does that even mean?
Well, 2 points. That network has more independent viewers than you think, and those clips are going to circulate on social media. And it was quite clarifying, I think, to a lot of people, that he could not give simple answers to questions about the culture war. He conflated circumcision with sex changes for children. So now it's good to know that he's on the 20% of an 80-20 issue nationally. But if you want to talk economics, fine, let's talk economics, which that network has talked about extensively as well. His biggest economic goal is Medicare for all, also known as single-payer health care, also known as nationalizing health care. He doesn't want to talk about El-Sayed, about how that would require taxing the middle class. That seems to defeat the whole championing of the working class mantra, don't you think? He doesn't talk about how that would kick off many millions of Americans off their private or employer-sponsored health care, and the majority of Americans, polling says, like their health care. So why doesn't he want to address that?
He wasn't asked about it.
But he is regularly.
Well, no, he was asked. He was asked about health care, but he wasn't asked about those I think those are actually important, detailed questions about how this would work. He wasn't asked about that.
And Trump is, I'm sorry, excuse me.
I just wanted to be very clear that these are issues that also impact the folks watching Fox, right? Whether we're red or we're blue, people at home are struggling.
And they like their
health
care. But they like their health care.
If they have
and they said in the 20 issues talking about they don't want to get
if they haven't got kicked off of Medicaid because of
so you want to kick them off even though they like it?
No, I don't want the people. I don't want the poor people that got kicked off.
How are you going to pay for Medicare for all? How are you going to pay for it?
I'm going to let you get that out. Now, let me finish. Now, what I don't want is the poorest of Americans to get kicked off of Medicaid, which is what happened to pay for these tax cuts that were part of the big beautiful.
Okay, that's also a misnomer. Work requirements for Medicaid?
This is crazy because you're talking about work requirements for Medicaid, but in fact, when we are talking about these administrative barriers, these are my neighbors that I'm going home and talking to, and they're missing paperwork by one day and they're falling off their care. They're going in and sitting in DES offices, Department of Economic Security offices, with packed waiting rooms where staff has been slashed and they are forced to miss work.
And the answer to that is a huge new bureaucracy where they will do it to everybody.
The person
hold on a second. Let me let Terry get
person in America who has taxed the middle class the most is Donald Trump. If you are at the 60th percentile of income or below, any tax cut you might have gotten from the big beautiful bill has been chewed up by tariffs. Tariffs have, if you're 50% or below, you're now paying more in the tax impact of tariffs than you would have before.
But that's not an argument for Medicare for all. People have an argument with how this is running.
And at the same time, he's been raking in cash hand over fist and calling affordability a con job or a Democratic hoax at the same time. And we just found out in June that he had 1,051 stock trades in 1 month. There's only 21 trading days in that month. You don't even, either you not see that as corruption?
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back. Before we went to break, one side of the table was in the middle of a heated debate about the policy around health care. But again, that's not really the question that has been dominating this race. There's been some surveys of the conversation around El-Sayed, and I believe it was the Washington Post. They basically found that it supercharged, anti-Islam commentary on social media. Is that the way to go for Republicans?
Okay, all of a sudden now, when you have this wackadoodle who's now the nominee in Michigan, it's the job of his opponents and the political party opposing him to be pristine, prim, proper, when it comes to a debate and a dialogue for
Why is he a
political campaign.
wackadoodle?
Right, and
Why
what?
is he
Because he
wackadoodle?
campaigns with Hassan Piker.
I'm sorry.
Okay, they want to make us about
Because he campaigns with Hassan Piker.
Why is he a wackadoodle?
And also, can I just talk about that point real quick? Do you mind, Horace? Okay. This is what I don't understand about Democrats right now. So when Obama was running for president in 2008, he disavowed Reverend Wright, who said something to the effect of, about 9/11, it was America's chickens coming home to roost. The same parallel is with Hassan Piker, except now the Democratic Socialist candidates, because let's be real, El-Sayed is, even though he doesn't claim to be socialist, the DSA is like, we approve, we love him. They're not disavowing him one bit, but they're not eschewing Hassan Piker. They're saying, well, you know, okay, he kind of hangs out with some of our candidates, and we're going to bless that indirectly.
So now I
That's
need
not
to
a
respond
great.
to this. So now your argument is guilt by association. Is that correct?
No.
No, you're known by the company you
I
keep,
wanna-
and I'm saying
known by
Obama.
the company you keep.
Okay,
Known by the
so
company you keep.
and
Okay, I want to finish this
Obama set a
point.
good
I
precedent.
want to finish this point. You said known by the company you keep, right? So I have a really hard time when Republicans make this argument because I happen to been following Donald Trump for the last 20 years. And so the company he keeps is dictators from around the country. It is from around the world. It is Jeffrey Epstein. It is crooks and criminals. It is Nick Fuentes having lunch with him. So you guys have the gall to talk to anybody about guilt by association?
Donald Trump, let's talk about exact parallels. Number one, is Donald Trump stumping with Nick Fuentes?
He had lunch with Nick Fuentes.
Oh, he had he was at a table.
He was at a table. I don't know what they're talking about.
And there are videos with him with Epstein. Is that a problem for you? Are you okay with that?
Show up at the lunch table.
You okay with him partying with Epstein?
I am not going to relitigate this.
Oh, now you're quiet. Now you're not enunciating like you was enunciating before, but now you're quiet.
No. I'm just not going to relitigate this. There's just no truth.
There's no truth.
To that.
Okay,
To the video of him with Epstein.
If I could reclaim my time. If I could reclaim my time.
There's no reclaiming time. You're not a senator.
Let me let Horace respond to what you're saying, Charles.
It is 2026, and in this year, the Democrats and the left are advantaged nationally, and they're likely able to take back the Senate and the House. However, if they do what they did in 2018 in Georgia, in Florida, and in Texas, where they run crazies, what they do is they lose and they will come up short. And that is what they're doing. I was on this show when I talked about Graham Plattner as an awful candidate that the party should never have allowed. El-Sayed is an awful candidate.
I just want to take issue with one word that you said, and it's pristine. Abby showed us a chart of skyrocketing, vicious anti-Muslim content online, sponsored by the Republican Party in many ways. And you
no.
Wait a minute.
All right, with a wink and a nod, they're like, okay, do they condemn it? And you just said, oh, you're expecting people to be pristine? Not being racist is not being...
All of the anti-Semitism that we have watched over the last 2 years was a wink and a nod from the left.
The right has a bigger anti-Semitism.
What is lunch?
And an anti-Islam problem, and an anti-immigrant problem, and still an anti-black problem.
Okay, let me let Deja respond. Go ahead.
Nick Fuentes, he had lunch with Donald Trump, no? And you said, well, he happened to sit down. Who just happens to sit down at the lunch table with the president? A Nazi, a self-proclaimed Nazi.
It's not your paper.
I want you to stop turning over here because I'm not. Talk to her. She's talking to you.
I'm just saying the New York Times reported that what actually happened was he was an uninvited guest. And
he
the
got close to the president
didn't even know
how?
who he was.
Not campaigning for Senate. I mean, guys, come on. It's like
What about Epstein? Did you just sit down at a table?
the guy that he tried to have kicked out of his club.
No, the one on the table.
The guy that he tried to get kicked out of his club.
When he's smiling in pictures.
Wait a minute.
Where the files he's in.
Thousands of times.
Where did Abdul El-Sayed said, I disavow my old friend, close personal friend Hassan Piker.
He has
we deserve 9/11. Hamas is 1,000 times better than Israel.
Hold on, I just want to say, I let you guys do all of this, but I just have to point out that El-Sayed did respond to the Hassan Piker thing. He says, I want to be crystal clear. Nobody speaks for this campaign besides me and my campaign spokespeople. While politicians and pundits try to make this race about a Twitch streamer, he's talking about Piker, we are going to be talking about gas, groceries, good schools, and healthcare. So
that is not a
there
Sister
is
Soldier
an
moment.
attempt to distance himself from it.
Sure.
It has happened. All right, everyone. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching Newsnight. Laura Coates Live starts right after a quick break.
So for me, Charles Blow absolutely nailed the hypocrisy in that argument. If you're going to use "you're known by the company you keep" against Abdul El-Sayed, then you have to be willing to apply that same standard to Donald Trump. You can't suddenly abandon guilt by association when the person being discussed is your guy. And that's exactly what Charles did. He turned the argument around and forced the panel to confront Trump's own relationships with controversial figures, including Nick Fuentes and Jeffrey Epstein. Now, I'm not saying every association automatically makes someone guilty of everything the other person believes. That's not how this works. But if Republicans want to make association the standard, then they don't get to selectively apply it. And honestly, I agree with the frustration expressed at the end of the clip. Democrats need to stop constantly allowing Republicans to dictate the framing of these conversations. If Abdul El-Sayed has controversial policies, attack the policies. If Hassan Piker has said something you disagree with, attack what he actually said. But don't create a completely different standard for Democrats while giving Donald Trump a pass every single time. That's the hypocrisy that stood out to me. Let me know your guys' thoughts down in the comment section below. Do you think Charles Blow successfully exposed the double standard? Or do you think Republicans have a legitimate point about guilt by association? As usual, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more news commentaries. I'll see you guys in the next one.